What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Bryant Bulldog Sports Hour on 990 WBOB, the number one radio show for all things Bryant athletics. I'm your host, Brian Costa, joined you, as always, by Matthew Carvalho in our Sprout co-working studios. Matt, how you doing this evening?
I am doing great. I did call you Tom, actually. I'm doing great, Brian. It's great to be here tonight on a wonderful March 2nd. How are you?
I'm doing great, Matt. I mean, obviously, like you said, it's March. Great time of the year, obviously, for some of the guests that we're going to have on this show tonight, including men's and women's basketball coaches. We're going to start off with head women's basketball coach Lynne-Ann Kokoski in our 8:15 spot. Then at 8:30, we're going to switch it up for a little bit. We're going to have on head softball coach Bianca Bell to talk about her team's great start to the weekend. They went 3-1 in the Delaware tournament and are playing some really high-level, opponents right now. So we'll talk about that. And then to end the show, we'll end with head men's basketball coach Jamion as his team also prepares for the end of their season and the America East tournament. So, Matt, like we said, it's March. It's the best time of the year. If you're a college basketball fan, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it.
There really isn't. I'm super happy to be in this moment right now. And, Matt, for us last year, we were, in this moment, seeing, the Bryant men's basketball team go to March Madness for the second time ever. And, for the first time since 2022. And it was a great season like that. That was kind of a season where you're the outright number one seed. It's kind of expected at this point, but the beauty of this time of year is that really anybody can win in this kind of thing. You only need to win 3 games in a row in the America East and you're a conference champion. That's all it takes. If one team gets hot at the right moment, that's really all she wrote. And I think that you can really, dictate that this time of year. I'm excited about it, having a chance to now, be back in this and back in this mode. And, obviously Coach Lynne-Ann Kokoski, her team last year had a great run to the conference semifinals facing off against Vermont in that tournament. So listen, they are, it is a great time of year. Super happy about it. Matt, just we'll start off with you. Obviously, you're covering things around the whole circuit, besides just the America East. Just give me your thoughts on this time of the year in general.
Look, Brian, in the month of March, there's just nothing like it. And I've, you talk about being all in the circuit. I've had my hands full with everything in the world of college basketball. It's not, from America East to the Big East to the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. I'm just all over the place. And look, I'll sleep in May. I'm not really going to get much sleep for the rest of the month. That just goes with the territory. But it's such a wonderful month of just everything college hoops. Like, I'm giddy. Like, as soon as I woke up in the morning on yesterday, I'm playing the CBS March Madness song, getting ready for March. It's going to be a wonderful month. It goes by like that.
Oh, absolutely. It does fly by. And I mean, for college basketball, it doesn't just start with the NCAA tournament. This is where the madness really begins, is these conference tournaments, because there are some leagues that'll play out as expected, but you will get the occasional surprise in here where a team does upset and really go on a run and makes things interesting. And that's really what makes the March Madness experience that much better. It isn't just that 64 game tournament. It comes down to all of these conference games, and all of it matters as we head down the final stretch. So really excited about that. Like we said, we'll have Coach Lynn on, and then we'll have Coach Christian on towards the end of the show. Little kind of, as Matt and I were doing some digging before the show, kind of just, looking up some of the history and stuff with Coach Christian and some stuff, obviously had a ton of success, in the tournaments at the Mount, went to 2 NCAA tournaments during his time there. His first go around in 2013-14 had to win back-to-back road games to win the conference tournament, doing so against Robert Morris, and after beating them and Wagner to go win the championship. So, Coach Christian has been in this position before where you've had to be on the road, be in that situation and go handle those hostile environments. We'll talk to him about what that all means a little bit later in the show. So really looking forward to that. And, for the women's side too, like we talked about, going up to Vermont last year, facing off against a good team up there in a tough gym to play at. I mean, it doesn't matter how good of a team you have. Playing in that gym is just going to be tough. Those are some really loyal fans up there. They're going to pack that place out. So you always have to be aware of that. But Bryant, again, is battle tested. They are going into this tournament as a 6 seed, but they have the same record as a year ago when they were the 3. So it just kind of shows to where the conference is at right now. It's a very talented league, and it has gotten even better on the women's side. And I think that they have a real chance to, maybe surprise some people in this tournament because, you're facing off against Binghamton in the first round, which was a school that you beat in the first round the last 2 years. However, those last two times were at your place. So things do kind of switch up a little bit here. However, you beat Binghamton on the road earlier this season. So the precedent is there. There is a blueprint to do it. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that all comes together. So like we said, Matt, I mean, getting a chance to cover Bryant last year on that NCAA tournament run, it's all the little stories that come up in between it that you learn about as things happen, whether it's Earl Timberlake overcoming all that he overcame with his injuries, or Rafael Pinzon, who, we found out after the semifinal game and going into the, championship that he was dealing with food poisoning and fought through that to go play in that championship game. And all of those stories with that incredible group, that is what defines this era of Bryant basketball. And even when we look back to 2022, you have some of the names that really made get recognition that during that time, whether it was Peter Kiss and Charles Pride, Hall Elijahs. That's what this time of the year really means for everyone. It's a special time to be a basketball fan, so we can't wait to talk about that more. Absolutely.
But Brian, before you go to break, I just want to ask you one quick and point of question.
Sure.
What month is it, Brian?
It's March, Matt. So let's start with that. We're going to head to a quick commercial break. When we're back, we're going to be joined alongside by head women's basketball coach Lynne-Ann Kokoski. Don't go anywhere. It's a March special with Brian Kostiw and Matt Carvalho on 990 WBOB. Welcome back to the Bryant Bulldog Sports Hour on 990 WBOB. Kostiw and Carvalho with you here on Monday night. Before we get into our next guest, we just want to tell you that tonight's broadcasts are brought to you from Sprout Co-working for all your co-working needs, large meetings, office for a day, working remotely, events, or just trying to get away from the distractions at home. Sprout Working in Providence, Rhode Island has got you covered, the official co-working home of 990 WBOB. Now joining us on the Sprout Co-working Expert Hotline is head women's basketball coach Lynne-Ann Kokoski. Coach Lynn, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we've gotten to this point once again in the year. It's postseason basketball. It's the best time of the year. Obviously for you and your team, just talk about what it means to be, back in this tournament, back competing in this once again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all love the March Madness, and this is what you live for as a basketball coach, as a basketball fan, a basketball player. So it's a time that anything can happen. So it's super exciting.
Absolutely. That was something, Matt and I were talking about in the open. It's that, the madness doesn't just kind of start at the tournament. It starts in these conference, tournaments. And really even before that, once you get into this month, it is really one of the best times of the year. If you're a college basketball fan, there's nothing like it. For yourself, this being your third time around with Bryant kind of doing this, just when you've had some of the, veterans on this team, where that they've kind of been through this before and had the kind of experience in these situations. Just talk about what that is like now going into, this time around versus, maybe having to, coach them up and tell them what it's going to be like versus them now having that experience.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of great experience on this roster. The universe loves us playing Binghamton for the third year in a row. So, but no, obviously, I am excited to see, kind of our bounce back, obviously from a tough week, with overtime and then obviously going down to New Jersey and not having a good weekend. So anxious to, kind of see what we look like getting back out there again, because at this point there's no do-overs. So, and I think, with a veteran group, I'm hopeful that, that'll prove true, and, those guys don't want their season to end.
I was about to say, it almost kind of seems like you guys they can almost just pencil it in with you guys in Binghamton every year now. It's kind of crazy how it's lined up to be that way. However, this year, obviously, it's at their place. So that's kind of a new dynamic to that playoff rivalry. Just talk about what it's kind of being like, now going to their place, having to play on the road, as opposed to hosting it these past 2 years, and maybe the differences that come with that.
Yeah, I mean, hosting is always nice. Obviously, you sleep in your own bed, don't have to travel, don't have to worry about all that stuff. But, we've won a fair amount of games on the road this year, including one at Binghamton as well. So, to me, it's really not even, I'd take that as a non-factor. Like I said, it was nice to have two back-to-back years of being home, but I think the beauty of this league, our record in the league last year gets us a home game. Our record in the league is the same, and it gets us, game on the road. So, I do think it is nice to be home, but we've done pretty well on the road as well.
I was about to say that is kind of remarkable with the record and everything like that. It just kind of says what it does about the league. Obviously for you guys, having that experience playing at Binghamton in a playoff setting, in that kind of atmosphere, what is that kind of like for you guys now, having the chance to scout that up and, having them as a playoff opponent before?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of just how it happened, how it drew out. I have a lot of respect for Mary Grimes and what she's done in her 2 short years at Binghamton, and I think it's a good matchup for us and for them. I think there's so much parity in the America East from top to bottom that I really think anything can happen, which is the excitement about it all.
Absolutely. Down the stretch of these last 2 games, we've seen Mimi Rubino shooting the cover off the ball. She's been incredible, obviously all season, but especially in these last 2 games, she's been heating up. Just, obviously for her, this is her last season, things kind of going with that. Just what's kind of impressed with you, I guess, late down the stretch with her?
Yeah, well, she's a competitor and she hates to lose, and she's going to try to do anything to will this team to victory, and she did that in the end of last year as well. So I could see it in her face, I could see it in her eyes that she doesn't want her career to end, which I appreciate, and I've always appreciated that about her. I'm really hopeful for those 3, I should say, with Rose Nelson, Brandon Nyborg, and Mimi Rubino. They've been such a big part of, I think putting Bryant women's basketball on the map and, putting us up there and being, a team that people do have to worry about. So I'm hopeful for their sake that we could play as long as possible for those guys.
Absolutely. Whether it be, Rose or Abby Lindsay coming over from UML, maybe getting a chance to, experience this America East kind of setting for the first time. What's it been like, with some of the other teammates kind of telling them about what this is going to, kind of what that experience is going to be like for them?
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to talk much about, make it a big thing.
Yeah.
Again, for us, it's another game, because I think the bigger you make it, the more pressure comes along, the more people get nervous. I've always been just, hey, man, like, we've gotten this far for a reason. We've won, 18 games for a reason. It's nothing changes. Nothing changes in that regard other than the fact that, we've now put a title of a tournament game on it.
Absolutely. For yourself throughout your coaching career, what was maybe the best piece of advice that you kind of received, about, kind of these situations in these games? I know you mentioned, kind of treating it like any other game and not letting it become bigger than it is, but just maybe some other stuff along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the biggest thing because, again, I don't like to get our girls worked up about it. I've really, talked a lot this season of one game at a time, one practice at a time. And, that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed at all. And, the only thing that's probably changed this time of year is shorter practices, and we've kept it a little bit lighter. So, I got a lot of kids playing a lot of minutes. So, that's probably the only thing. But yeah, I try not to put too much stock into the tournament stuff. And it's more of a focus thing.
Mm-hmm. With it kind of being, with the game being on Thursday and, it not really kind of changing too much from the conference schedule. It's just kind of a continuation of, the Thursday, Saturdays, does that kind of help you guys with your planning and everything like that, having there, not be extra time off in that process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, to keep it consistent, I think is what every coach in the league, and we talked about that at our coaches meeting back in June. The consistency really matters. If you stay on your schedule, the travel remains the same and all that good stuff. So.
Absolutely. As we kind of head down the stretch, here, with this season and everything with that, we talked about kind of the battle tested of, this group and everything like that. It is just kind of crazy to see how this all kind of comes together down this time of the season. So, just really impressed with all of that. Coach, I guess, before we take off, any kind of lasting, any last thoughts on your end?
No, I mean, the biggest thing for me, Brian, is this has been such a fun group to coach, super connected. really selfless, cheers for one another, really, really wants each other to succeed. I haven't felt like we've had one, player that, has really dominated. And I think that's in the sense of, you see, we've got 4 players in double figures, average in double figures. We share the basketball. So it's been a really awesome group to coach. And I'm a little bit sentimental that it's coming to an end here, our time is winding down because I've really enjoyed coaching this group. So that's really one of the final things I want to say. And for, like I said, the seniors' sake, and they put this stamp, their mark on this program, our 6th years, and Rose joining us from Fordham. I can't say enough great things about what they've done for Bryant women's basketball, and they're going to be true dogs for life. Just again, I can't say thank you enough to those 3.
Absolutely. That unselfishness is something that's really special, I think, with this group in particular. Where do you think that really even came from? Was that just from the coaching on the outset? Was that, just an identity thing? Where does that kind of start, I guess?
I think it's honestly starts with they have such great relationships amongst each other. And I think that helps when, you genuinely want, the person next to you, your teammate next to you, to succeed. And, we talk a lot about that. We talk about touches and high fives and, celebrations, whether it's a bench celebration or whether you're out in the court, you're pointing to each other after a good pass and a good score. But, I think it stems beyond that. It stems in the dorm rooms. It stems in, their pre-practice. I mean, I had a lot of sick kids, for the past 2 weeks, and I'm like, they still want to, high five it. And I'm like, guys, stay away from each other. So, and it's really, it's heartwarming to see as a coach. So again, it's been a great, really fun group to coach through the wins and the losses.
Absolutely. That is amazing to hear. Well, Coach, listen, we wish you the best of luck in your game against Binghamton coming up later this week, and we'll talk to you real soon.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care, Coach. Have a great rest of your night.
You too.
All right. That was Coach Lynne-Ann Kokoski from the women's basketball team joining us here. Always great having Coach Lynn on the show. She's, always got a lot of insight to provide about this team and about this group. And listen, again, she kind of mentioned the end of the NJIT game and the UMBC game. Those were 2 tough ones, to kind of end the regular season on. But in general, I think that, even though Bryant is going into this thing ranked as a sixth seed, they could very well be back in the same spot that they were in last year, a conference semifinal with a win on Thursday. That's all it takes for them to be, essentially right back where they were. And I think, Binghamton, they're going to pack that place out in Vestal. It's going to be a tough environment, but I think Bryant has the talent to go in there, obviously, and take care of business. And like Coach Kokoski said, they had the same record as they did last year. Last year, they went 8-8 in conference with a 3 seed. This year, they're the 6. So it's just and again, they won 18 games. Usually, most 18-game winners in a conference might find themselves, towards the, top 3 seeds in that conference. It just kind of speaks to where the league was at this year in terms of, how those games kind of went. And I think that, Bryant, it's kind of like in any given day. I think, they have, one of the deepest rosters in the league. And I think that can show on a night in and night out basis. And, like she said, with that unselfish nature, you never know who's going to go off. It could be Mimi Rubino, who's going to drop 22. It could be Mia Mancini, who's going to go off and do her thing. Rose Nelson is going to be out there, along with Nia Scott and Miranda Nyborg down low. So they all make their plays. And it's a great group to watch. And we talked about at the beginning of the year, they went into the season ranked as 3rd in the preseason poll. Obviously, maybe you have some games in there that you didn't have go your way, but they still have the talent to overcome that and be in a good position as a result of it. This is a team that is going to go down swinging no matter what position they're in. And I think that, this game against Binghamton is going to be a battle. And Bryant, the last 2 years, were able to come out on the better side of that battle. And I think we have a good shot to do that again here. So listen, I think that, is it going to be tough? Yeah. But I think that, this team with the battle-tested nature that they have is going to have the experience to go in there and hopefully compete. And I think that they'll be able to do their thing. Because, again, they pulled out a good victory at Binghamton last year. Not last year, earlier this season, I should say. And, winning on the road in the America East is tough in general. I mean, winning anywhere is tough. But, in the America East, in that game at Binghamton, You're on a bus ride for about 5.5 hours going right out there to New York. It's a tough kind of stretch to be in the middle of that, getting ready, going through your motions and the progressions and everything like that, and trying to, get everything right. It's not always going to be a perfect fit, but you kind of have to, fight through that, make it work. And when you can do it, it's going to be a great result on the other side of it. So I got to say that, I like Bryant's chances as we head into, this time of year. I think that with the game being on Thursday, we're going to have a lot to look forward to. So I'm excited about it. But Matt, before we head off to commercial break, did you have any final thoughts on the women's team?
I just can't wait for the tournament, Brian.
Absolutely, Matt. All right, well, listen, we're going to head off to a quick commercial break. Welcome back to the Bryant Bulldog Sports Hour on 990 WBOB. Brian Kostiw, Matt Carvalho with you here on Monday night. We're going to have our next guest joining us hopefully pretty soon. It will be Bianca Bell of the Bryant softball team, their head coach. Before we get into that, we just wanted to kind of talk about, the softball team and how they've looked so far to start this year. 7-6 overall, but recently went 3-1 in their tournament at the University of Delaware, beating Lemoyne and beating Lemoyne twice, as well as beating Delaware, one out of 2 times. So it was great to see kind of there. Obviously, the softball team at Bryant under Coach Bell has, had a massive resurgence, being, a, regular season champion at times, being a competitor in the America East tournament. And it is a real credit to what Coach Bell has been able to bring in here to Bryant University. For herself coming over as an assistant from Pitt and her experience as a player down at LSU, she's really seen it all in this, throughout her time, coaching in this circuit. And, she has been as legit as it comes here. And, now we're getting a chance to see her actually develop, some of her own players. We're seeing some freshmen come in here now and really start to hit well for this team, which has been exciting to say nonetheless. So, and not only are they, performing well, they're doing it against really good competition. You're not just seeing, your average kind of, opponents that you'd see for Bryant on a schedule like this. Bryant University, they started the year off in College Station facing number 1 Texas Tech, who is now ranked number 2, but still, you're facing a top ranked team in Texas Tech. You face UNC, who is a powerhouse in softball. And then, you're going to, coming up this weekend, you're going to have the University of Michigan, Radford, JMU, BC, and number 12 Virginia Tech. So, I got to give Coach Bell a lot of credit. She is getting her players a ton of experience, a ton of, reps and ability to go against top level competition, which, not a lot of programs around here are going to be able to say that. She is, gearing them up for what she hopes is another great run in the America East. And I think by doing this with, relatively new and younger team, it should serve them well because, you lost a ton of players last year, whether it was to the portal or to, just graduation in general. And, it's kind of building it back up with these new young players. And it's been exciting to watch. And that's kind of what you get to see from a coach in, especially their, not just their second, but their third year. It's their recruits that they are bringing in, not just, the occasional freshman that was, left out there or a transfer that comes in. It's really their team starting to take shape. And we're kind of seeing what that looks like with Coach Bell. And, this is just the start of it right now. It's, this is just kind of where it starts because, again, these kids are hopefully going to stay with this program all the way through and they're only going to get better. And I think that, Coach Bell and Coach Cat and that whole staff there, they're going to get, this team ready to go pretty soon. So I'm really pumped about that. I think that, it's going to be a great look as we head into it. So, it's a definitely an interesting group. Really excited about that. He's still waiting on Coach Bell, of course. I'm going to, reach out to see if we can get her on the line there. So let me do some work on that. Doesn't look like they're going to be able to make it on, unfortunately, during this time. So, Matt, I guess in the time that we do have, we'll kind of, fill this last couple of minutes. We talked some Bryant softball, but I guess to kind of, go over it in the next couple of minutes, we were kind of talking about in the open, some of our memories from, Bryant basketball, on the men's side, particularly with March Madness. Matt, I guess kind of give me your kind of memories of, I guess, really when, covering basketball and, especially Bryant basketball really started with you.
Well, I'll say, Brian, I mean, the first time I covered any sort of college basketball game, it was Bryant. I mean, that was the first team covering, and I'm trying to go see how far back I can go. I mean, it was the 2024 season, and I think it was a D3 team, or they were playing someone I never even knew. No, sorry. First one I went to was the summer camp game in the winter.
Oh, sure, yeah.
With the kids.
Was
that
it
was
Drexel?
The first one I went to. I think it was.
Okay, yes.
I think it was. Because I had the time, and I went to that, and that was like the first game I went to cover, and it was Drexel. First home game. First game was Bryant Brown. It's all coming back to me. Bryant Brown at Brown.
Okay, yes.
Or no, yes, at Brown. At
Nice.
Brown. That was the first one I covered. Then I did the game with Drexel. But no, I mean, that was the first time covering it. I remember that season. Did some road games. Went to that UNH game when they blew them out, I think by 20 or something back then. And no, I mean, covering Bryant basketball is always fun. It all led up to last year, heading down to March Madness, a story that the one and only Tristan Hobbs will tell as every time he gets. I truly appreciate that being one of his go-to stories, And I'll wait for when, my plaque is in the Bryant Athletic Hall of Fame. Better yet, just the car I drove there should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that thing's a trooper to make it all the way out to Cleveland like that. Yeah, I mean, listen, I first got really into Bryant basketball. It was the first game I ever went to was 2019. It was the home opener against Brown, and you saw guys like Michael Green III, Charles Pride, trying to think
Juan
Cardenas of all guys doing their thing and really showing out. Benson Lynn, just to kind of name some names of people that I was first watching, and they lost that first game, but it was a back and forth dogfight kind of a game. And, I remember really getting invested after that. And I remember, when they first made it to the NEC championship game against Mount St. Mary's, the one they lost, it was during COVID. And I had to sneak my way up into the corner of the window gym in the Chase to kind of watch the game because it wasn't being televised anywhere, and was just trying to get a peek of, Bryant basketball in that kind of moment. And then the next year getting to actually be in that gym when they won it in 2022 was such a special team and a special, moment, getting a chance to, work in that athletic communications office, be around it as, that whole thing was happening, lining up for the tickets and, going through that whole experience. It was a really special time that I was fortunate enough to, kind of have a part in. And then, being a chance then to cover it my, final year as a grad student and, watch them win the tournament in 2025 was such a fulfilling feeling. And, there are a ton of great, moments that come from that, and really fortunate to have had that, and really fortunate to kind of see what's to come with the, men's and women's team. The women had a great run last year to the semifinals, and, it's really exciting to see how it all pan out. But Matt, we're going to head off to our final break of the night. When we're back, we're going to have on head men's basketball coach Jamion Christian. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments on 990 WBOB. Welcome back to the Bryant Bulldog Sports Hour on 990 WBOB. Kostiw and Carvalho here with you for your final segment of the night. Before we get into it, we just want to tell you to join the WBOB team this spring, watching the Bryant men's and women's lacrosse teams at Burns Stadium. Single game tickets are now on sale at BryantTickets.com. For more on the Bulldogs, listen right here to the Bryant Bulldog Sports Hour on 990 WBOB. And now joining us on the Sprout Co-working Expert Hotline for our final segment of the night is head men's basketball coach Jamion Christian. Coach Christian, welcome back to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Always great to be here, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Coach. First things first, obviously, congrats on the win against NJIT on Senior Day. We'll just start with your opening thoughts from that.
Just incredible to have a chance to honor our seniors in that way. Ja'Kai Robinson has been through so much in his career, not just here. He's had an incredible amount of success here at Bryant, but, just battling, working through, playing at Miami and, trying to find his love for the game again and finding that back here at Bryant. I know he feels very connected to the community here at Bryant, and credits a lot of that to his family, how it's growing here and everything. So it's great to have a chance to honor him. Lenny Weber is a guy who, had a chance to step on the floor for the final time in his career. A great chance to honor them. I think it's just really important. Even though it's the way our world is kind of changing a little bit, I think it's incredibly important to honor those who have resilience to get to the end. And it was great to watch our team be so unselfish and to honor those guys with the effort in their play.
Absolutely. And, for people who didn't see it, what a special moment, obviously, that was to have Lenny step on the court like that, in the full knee brace, obviously dealing with injury. And, he wasn't in the book and you guys had to take the technical foul and kind of go through that. At what point, I guess, in the, when that game started to go the way that it did it kind of occur that, that you guys were going to maybe try to do that for him?
I think something that's important is that every time there's always a time where you stepped off the floor for the last time and you didn't realize it was your last opportunity to do that. And, I actually hadn't planned to do it, but I just, in the final moments of that game, I just felt compelled to just try to get him on there to stand one more time and just to feel that energy of the group. Again, I wish I'd had the foresight to sort of plan it. I was so locked into trying to make sure we got ourselves into the America East tournament and found a way to beat a really good NJIT team. But, it kind of came to me there in the final minutes. And I looked at Troy, our trainer, and said, could he stand on the court? Because he's not cleared to move. And when he gave me the yes on that, it was a really honor to have a chance to put him out there one more time.
Wow, that is very special to kind of just see how that all came together. Just the fact that, he was able to stand and was able to get a couple of those dribbles off there. That was an awesome moment for him. And, having a chance to do that for this program is, really special. You kind of talked about it during the post-game press conference of, the importance of senior day and, kind of what that means. And, like you had just said a couple of moments ago about, maybe how that, has kind of changed in the past couple of years, but, just the importance of that, for you and your program, getting the chance to have that.
Traditions are important, and honoring those who have put in the work and the time are important to be able to do. Along as we're going to always make sure our seniors get a chance to step on the floor and have an opportunity to celebrate. They deserve that with all the hard work they're able to put in through the course of their career and through the year. I think there's a component that's sometimes missed, in terms of just always looking at production. It's the energy, it's the connectivity that those guys bring every single day. Again, I just believe in honoring the human spirit, and it's great to have an opportunity to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Now going to the other side of it and looking at a particular freshman, Ty Tabalas, in this game had a great game, 14 points, 4 steals, 4 assists, and then 2 blocks. I mean, just kind of doing everything for this team. And, Ty has had kind of, had a kind of a roller coaster ride of a season. And now kind of getting to see what an almost full body of work looks like in that development, and, getting to see him come along in that way is really special. Just talk about what that journey has been like with him, especially now getting to this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, he's an incredible player. He's going to have an incredible career. We picked the right guy there. I mean, that matchup between him and Bolden are the 2 top freshman guards, in the conference, and to watch those guys battle it out mano a mano and watch our guy come out on top, it really shows how much our guy's been improving, which is what we're all about, is learning at the beginning and then attacking it at the end. And so to watch him be able to do that is special. I think one thing that, people know, he's kind of battling through some injuries through the last 2 months, and been really a tough guy, a guy from Worcester, Worcester, Mass. So he's
I have my appreciation for that. Absolutely.
He's a tough guy. And, so, it's good to see him kind of starting to get back healthy. We had to take the two, I think he sat out 2 games just to get more healthy. We could have kept trying to fight through and play, and he wanted to. So it's just important. All these guys have been kind of worn down a little bit. I do feel like our health is kind of moving in the right favor right now. I think we're going to get the best of Ty Tabalas here at the end of the season when we need it the most.
Absolutely. Obviously playoffs on the horizon, but you still have one more regular season game against UNH. Just talk about what's going to go into that, looking to close the regular season strong.
Man, we got a chance to sweep New Hampshire. Anytime you get a chance to sweep a conference opponent, there's so much involved with that. We want to be able to take some momentum with us into the postseason. I think that's extremely important for our team. A chance to get us a road win a road win at the end of conference season, when we know we're going to have to go on the road in the postseason. Again, momentum is everything. So we just want to make sure we're playing our very best basketball going into conference play. We got a great opportunity here to try to get this sweep against a really hungry New Hampshire team that's kind of been down on their luck so far. It's about time for us to start to, exert our will onto our opponents, and it's a great opportunity for us to do it tomorrow.
Absolutely. Coach, we talked about it with Coach Lynn at the beginning of the show. It's March now. It's the best time of the year if you're a college basketball fan. Just talk about the excitement, for yourself as a coach and, getting a chance to lead these men, going into this time of the year.
I mean, I just love these kill or be killed situations where you win or go home. I mean, It's really, while I'm back in college basketball, is that I love these scenarios and these situations, and trying to exemplify that for our team, and hopefully they can feel that. In pro basketball, we played a series. You play best out of five, which is also a lot of fun. But I love these situations, man, where if we out strategize, we outplay a team on the day. We're going to get a chance to improve and to keep moving on. I love those situations, and I think we got a team of guys who love those situations also.
Absolutely. When it comes to, playing these games on the road, you have experience, coaching games on the road and winning them. You did it twice in 2013, 14, when taking them out to an NCAA tournament. Just, I guess, talk about the preparation that goes into, those road playoff matchups and kind of, the intensity, everything behind that.
Yeah, the first thing is, you're gonna play all year to get your seeding and number 1 through 8 and all this stuff, and it doesn't matter. If you're in the tournament, you got a chance to win the game. It's about who can be the best on that day. You want to be the very best team. If you're able to go and do that, you get a chance to go and improve and get a chance to go and move on. So we try to, first thing, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll put together a little bit of a bracket, and we'll have the guys really lock in on a certain section of the bracket and what's most important now. And then every time we kind of move on, we take off that part of the bracket, we put something else on, try to create a little bit of momentum. But it's all about just having great focus and energy and connectivity. The team that as always, the most connected team always wins. It really, playoff basketball really exemplifies that. So we'll be locked in, have a chance to go and do that. Again, one of my championships in Italy, we're the road team as well. So, to me, it's like, man, let's go play. Something interesting. Sometimes there's more pressure at home because there's an expectation to win. And, now that road team comes in, they kind of have that kind of energy. It kind of numbs the crowd a little bit, and that creates anxiety for the home team. So, I'm looking forward to trying to go and create some anxiety for some of these teams on the road.
I was about to say, well, I know on the other side of it, you created some anxiety at Bryant a couple of years ago. I know, Tristan Hobbs still talks about the nightmare of you guys coming in there way back when and stifling that team. So, we definitely know, what that can look like. So, that's definitely exciting. Obviously, Coach, really looking forward to that. Obviously, with the UNH game and maybe you guys not knowing exactly what the seeding is all going to look like, as that kind of, usually you can have coaches maybe looking ahead at the next game for the scout and kind of things like that. What does this kind of look like now, when with you guys having to, maybe not know what the fate is going to look like, I guess?
Yeah, the great thing for us is we have the coordinator system. So, we have offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. So it really allows us in tournament time to really be just locked into the opponent in front of us. There's already been so much work that's been done on these opponents already. We keep a really steady book on everything, the play calls, what they called this time in the game, what they're looking for, all those things. One thing when you have one guy doing all the scouts, you can get worn down in tournament time. When you got one guy on one side of the ball, I found that you get a little bit more specific, maybe get a little bit better. So that's one of the reasons why we've done that. I think that fits into, it doesn't matter who we're going to play. I mean, we're going to literally be on the bus ride coming back and, trying to decide where we're going to go. And, the ability to be able to just say, all right, I got all my files right here. We're going to go and do this. It's going to be really powerful.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we wish you guys the best of luck this upcoming game against UNH, and then obviously as we head into tournament time. So we wish you guys the best of luck in those games, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Yes, sir. Go Dogs.
Absolutely. Go Dogs. Thank you so much, Coach. All right, that was head men's basketball coach Jamion Christian with us here as his team prepares for the America East tournament. Once again, it's the best time of the year. It's March, baby. There's nothing really like it, and I'm pumped about it. Obviously, Coach Christian, he just said he's going into it with the mentality that, you can be a road team, go in and, potentially shock some people. Mount St. Mary's here in 2021, he wasn't with them at that point, but they went into Bryant's building and they shocked them. And, when he was still the coach there, he went in and beat Bryant in their own building. So, he has experience doing that. And I think that's going to hopefully bode well for them as we go into tournament time here. So really looking forward to that with both the men's and the women's side there. So really pumped on that end. But listen, Matt, we're going to close out the show here. But by the time we get into it next week, we're going to potentially have some more playoff basketball to talk about, or we'll have to kind of see how it all shapes out. So, Matt, thank you so much for, doing your work on the ones and twos in studio. We appreciate all your efforts as well. But from the Bryant Bulldog Sports Hour, I'm Brian Costa, Matt Carvalho in our studios. We'll see you guys next week. Take care and peace out.